Lars, we can say something that very few people can say. We were some of the first to talk about Michael Penix going to the Atlanta Falcons. We had that back in February. We've got it dated. We got it timestamped. You can go back and check it out. So we are overjoyed by this news. Quick personal nap. Shout out to Mike. Last time we ran into him, it was March. Took just a moment to say hi to us, catch up. So it's always wonderful to see him. We got to make sure we get that in there, right? But this is awesome. Where I have a lot of thoughts about what the Falcons can do under Mike for the rest of the regular season. But after this pick was so maligned and just so criticized for, obvious reasons with the Kirk Cousins contract, everything like that, we get why the criticism was where it was, but this should have happened like a month ago, right? 1 touchdown, 9 picks for Cousins. It's been abysmal.
You know what's ironic?
What?
The dual UW quarterback situation with Will and Damon and Penix and Kirk Cousins. Like, hey, like in mid-October, like, hey, what kill us to just try him out, just see what happens.
Yeah,
give him a start at Indiana, give him a start at Iowa, just see what happens. If you lose, you lose. So be it. Will's a great kid, And again, Kirk Cousins, like Will Rogers, both great teammates. Both kind of came in with a deal already in hand, and you kind of got to, on some level, honor the commitment and respect the wishes. But at some point, when you're 6-6, or in Atlanta's case 7-7, it's like, I think now is the time. Probably again, like you said, maybe 3 or 4 games ago. But at some point, it's almost like, what? First game rattled confidence. Second game, maybe it's just the other defense. And I think now it's kind of been a product of multiple games for Raheem Morris to say, you know what? We're 7-7. If we lose the next 2, we're out. If Mike happens to win, it's great. And by the way, this actually kind of works out for Mike, where it's like, what? He doesn't have to, come in as the guy pressuring Kirk Cousins. If anything, everybody was lambasting it. And I do want to say, not on top of your point of when you said it, because I think you said it, and then I said it after they had signed Kirk Cousins. And I was like, hey, you know what? Still wouldn't be a bad idea.
Still works.
Still, the Patrick Mahomes route does pay off, people. And again, I know it's a rare kind of comp to make, and I'm not saying Mahomes or Penix is the next Mahomes, but again, I wouldn't also count it out just in terms of again, when he gets in, there's enough pieces in Atlanta to make it work. The question is the coaching there? Is the scheme right? Can they get these next couple of wins and potentially secure that playoff spot? And if that's the case, that's a perfect running start for Mike, and no sweat off his bones, because next year they'll probably bring back Kirk Cousins and just be, in case Mike gets hurt, or and we have a sophomore slump or whatever the case may be, and otherwise then you cut him after next season and say, great, we already have our franchise quarterback, we don't need an overpriced one.
So this is the interesting part of that debate, where he's still owed $50 million next year, guaranteed. Unless you can find a way to trade him, then you can maybe find a way to get out of the money. But this is why I think it's really interesting. So shout out to it's blanking on me who had the stats, somebody over at CBS. There hasn't been a first-round quarterback since 1970 to make his first career start in week 16 or later and go on to lead that team to the playoffs. That hasn't happened. That could change with Michael Penix, where Lars, this is the Falcons' schedule for the rest of the season. This is why they made the move, to make the playoffs, because they play the Giants this weekend. And then in week 18, they play the Carolina Panthers. I almost said New Orleans Saints. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I already have it mapped out for how they win the division as well. But the reason I skipped over week 17 is because they play the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football. This might be just the most fun. I'm so glad they made this move when they did, where if Mike lights it up this weekend against the Giants, which, as you and I and all our everydayers, any Husky fan out there knows, is very well within the realm of possibilities for Mike. We could call it, the real battle for the Heisman Trophy, where, I'm still salty about that, because Mike absolutely deserved the Heisman Trophy last year. And if, like, I've mapped out all these playoff scenarios. The Commanders play the Eagles this weekend. The Commanders are in the 7th seed right now. They'll drop to 9-6 if they lose to the Eagles. Then, all of a sudden, if they lose to the Falcons as well, that could flip-flop with the head-to-head right there. And not only could Mike potentially just say, hey, that should be my Heisman Trophy, he could beat Jayden Daniels to get the Falcons into a playoff position, which would just be so cool to just say, all right, I've watched this Falcons offense just painfully, all season long. It's just made my eyes bleed at times, mainly for fantasy football reasons. That's beside the point. Nobody cares about that. But the more I watch this offense, the more I was like, why can't we see Mike? Why can't we see this? And this isn't even, from you and I being the Locked On Huskies guys. This is just for me as somebody who likes football. That offense was slow. It was boring. It was stagnant. Kirk couldn't move. He has a solid offensive line in front of him. Shout out to Caleb McGarry. He's a really solid offensive line in front of him. He's got 3 top 10 picks around him. He's got Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. That's its own scenario there. And he's got Drake London. And that's, without mentioning Ray McLeod, who's a lot of fun to watch, without mentioning Darnell Mooney, without mentioning Tyler Algier, who's a really good second running back. This is an awesome supporting cast. And because of Kirk Cousins, they've done nothing with it. And since that 500 yards, 5 touchdown game, whatever it was on Thursday Night Football, he's been terrible. And I understand this move wasn't made because of optics, because you gave him so much money. But at the same point, that, you could have sped up the move with that same reasoning with, hey, we paid this guy $180 million and he's been terrible. We need to, do something to just give him a kick or whatever it is. And we're starting Michael Penix next week. And maybe, we'll consider a quarterback competition after that. That could have been a move. It wasn't, whatever reason, doesn't matter. Don't care. But this is so cool because we saw Mike thrive for 2 years. And watching him have a chance to go do that at the NFL level now is just so exciting.
It reminds me of when I asked Kalen DeBoer, shout out for the trigger warning there, about the 3 quarterback competition going into the season. When it's like, hey, how's Sam, Dylan, and Mike looking? And he got to Mike last, and it was kind of like, you could just, Sam's got a great deep arm. Like, I know, I saw him in 2020 and 2021 when I was up at the top end of the stadium just watching Sam drop, great dimes, for like 30, 40 yards, but then, couldn't read over the middle. And so, it's like, you can kind of just see the answer building, and then got to Demo, gunslinger and all those sorts of things. And Mike's just been solid. It's like, exactly. Mike is literally in no rush. And it was kind of the beautiful part about his UW career that was really symbolic. He was never in any rush. Like, how many times in 22, I think it was like 6 or 7 games where he wasn't even sacked once. And, you look and fast forward in 23 and you get I think it was the Joe Moore word in 23, yep. Right? Yeah. And so, like, you build up on top of it. I remember his parents being like, he has never had an offensive line this good in his entire football life. And I was like, to be fair, it's kind of hard to top this one. Bar was kind of set high, but the story with Mike was just put a couple pieces around him and give him 2.5, 3 seconds, and he'll figure it out. He'll sit in the pocket and stare down the barrel. Like, Mike, how many times he stare down the barrel and just let it rip for 50 down to Jalen Polk or McMillan?
So I think about one particular throw. We've seen Mike in 2 games this season, both of them at the end of blowouts. The first one was really cool to see it against Ryan Grubb and the Seattle Seahawks. And then the second one was against the Denver Broncos. And they put him in at the end of a blowout, and he made a throw down the left side to Casey Washington. Made a perfect throw. Washington wasn't able to hang on to it. Unfortunately, got injured on the play. But that was just a drop in the bucket. It was such a perfect throw. And it was just in that moment that I was like, yeah, like you and I already knew. You and I already knew, hey, we truly believe that this guy is going to succeed at the NFL level. That throw was that moment for me where it just snapped. And I said, yes, it's time. You need to make this move now, because you know who can't make that throw right now? Kirk Cousins. He's 36 years old, coming off an Achilles tear. It's time. And if somebody else wants to take on that contract, they really should, because I truly believe we're going to see Mike succeed over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And Lars, just as somebody, I put this out on Twitter after the announcement. I took a couple of fun pictures of him staying after on senior day in 2022, where I remember watching him high five every single fan that was draped all the way around the Husky tunnel, because we all thought, wow, what a season for Michael Penix. This guy is going to go down as one of the greatest one-year wonders in college football history, because we thought with that injury history, with what that NFL draft class was, there was no reason for him to stay in school and he should go to the NFL. Then everything happened the way it did. I'm not going to get into that because we're almost out of time here, but I just remember in that moment just thinking, this is going to be a really special story no matter what happens to Michael Penix. And I know I've said it many times already in whatever we've been talking for 10 minutes. I couldn't be more excited for him.